All right, here we go. Haneefah Khaaliq, welcome to Ask the Politician. Hey, you are running for the next U.S. Senator for Indiana as an independent. Did I get all that information correct?
Yes, you did. You got that correct.
Good. I do apologize. I didn't ask you how to pronounce your name. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes, Haneefah Khaaliq. You got it perfect.
Perfect. I'm terrible at that. So for everyone that I mispronounced their name, please forgive me. Hey, I do have your website up over here. I have a lot of notes down here that I don't want to get to. But first and foremost, as I do with all the candidates, I want to know who it is you are and why are you running for the next U.S. Senator for Indiana?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me today. And I tell you what, I like what you've got in the background there. It's a good day to have a good day.
Every day.
And it's great to be here with you. So who am I? I am Haneefah Khaaliq, as you stated, and I'm excited about running for the United States Senate in Indiana because Indiana is in need for a change and for someone who can make a difference. And I believe that I can do that. I'm running on a platform for education, the elimination of poverty, and civil and human rights. And these three things really do represent my experience and even what I do in my career. I'm a human rights agency director for the city of Gary, which I love what I do. I'm also a former public school teacher, turned lawyer, loved the civil rights, human rights era, and went right into it. And actually, I own a small business company that connects low income and folks on fixed income to licensed attorneys and mental health therapists nationwide. And so my platform is representative of what type of senator I hope to be. You know, we have two US senators who haven't held a single public, free and open to the public town hall. I think that is a disgrace. We're all your constituents. And it doesn't matter if we're there to disagree. Listen, I often tell people I wouldn't care if folks were lined up around the corner to disagree with me. At least I met with them and gave them that voice. I come from a family with very humble beginnings. My grandmother came up from Laurel, Mississippi, and my other one came from Darien, Georgia, up through the northward migration here to Illinois and Indiana. And I've been a Hoosier for over 20 years now. And so, you know, for me, I graduated from Lake Central High School, went on to IUPUI to study education, came out, became a teacher, went from there, graduated from Valpo Law, and studied our politicians for a number of years before I set out. And I was ready to go from the very beginning.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, hey, we were talking a little bit beforehand, and I want to get your thoughts on, you know, how the campaign's going and about the political process of, you know, running for U.S. Senator.
Yes.
What are some of the issues that you have run into with the state of Indiana that, you know, you think needs to be changed, or your views of going through that process? What's that been like?
You know, it's been challenging. At some points, it's also been an eye-opening experience. I would say an eye-opening experience, maybe a little bit more. You know, some states have it harder. Some states have.
That's true. I've talked to a lot of senators, U.S.
Yeah.
Senate candidates, and
Yeah,
it's not as bad.
it's not as bad, but some states are easier. I'd like it to be easier here. So in the state of Indiana, to run for U.S. Senate or governor, you have to acquire a total of 4,500 signatures from registered voters in Indiana, 500 signatures from each congressional district. And so the reason, and I started my campaign in 2020, And I was running for the Democratic nomination because I felt that my views and my stances and the issues closely aligned with, the Democratic fabric. And growing up in a home where one of my parents was a Republican and the other one was a Democrat, I grew up hearing their conversations and talks and arguments and all of these things. And so, but at the end of the day, I felt very confident that running as a Democrat represented me. And so I set out. I put together my website. I had 33 national policies and agendas already on what I wanted to do. I feel that candidates do not often have a plan or a policy. And so I immediately did that. So everyone could quickly go to my website and see what that was about. I started hosting town halls. I toured over 70 counties. Over 70 counties. I held nearly 35 town halls, always free and open to the public. Anybody could attend. No matter what side of the political aisle, that you were on. And most of them were held virtually because we were in the middle of a pandemic. So you're talking about having to get these signatures, just to kind of wrap your head around this. Yeah. We had to get these signatures with no accommodations whatsoever by our Indiana Election Commission. No, you need to get these signatures. Like nothing is going on, like we're not in the middle of a pandemic, like we're not facing inclement weather. And even many of the county clerk's offices were closed without notice to us. What were we supposed to do? Walk through the walls and get the certified petitions? So it was all this confusion with this. And feel free to interrupt me anytime. I can see, I'm cool with that. But it was hard. It was difficult. So in the end, we counted over 4,500 signatures. The campaign counted 4,585 signatures. The Indiana Election Commission counted 4,473 signatures. And they voted to remove my name from the primary ballot. After more than a year and a half, nearly worth of work and effort, they voted just like that to remove my name from the ballot. And I think it was just like 4 or 5 of them. We were devastated. We were absolutely devastated. And we couldn't really understand why. We were given 5 pages of evidence before the hearing. When we got there, they gave us 243 pages. We had no time to respond, no time to review the evidence against us. It was a violation of my due process rights. And the person who filed the challenge, and this is the thing, so in Indiana, so you go, let's say you collect all those signatures. You're presumed okay, unless a challenger comes to you and says, oh, we want to bring a microscopic lens to all of this.
Really?
And it usually doesn't happen, but for me, it happened.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And it was actually, it was a close contact of one of the primary opponents that I had. It was devastating to the campaign. Like I said, they voted, I think it was less than 7 minutes, and took my name off the ballot without weighing the evidence. And we even discovered that there was some questions of conflict of interest that came up, that we had to appeal this decision. And we did. We appealed to the Indiana Court of Appeals. And they tossed the case for lack of jurisdiction. Even though in the rules it states Court of Appeals, and the staff at the Indiana Election Commission informed us that this was where we were to file our appeal. So now the Indiana Election Commission is misinforming candidates
That's
You
crazy.
know, it's all very crazy. It's all very crazy, and that's why we're moving forward. We have filed to be, I tell people this, I would have had no problem gracefully bowing out of this election cycle had I been disqualified fairly.
Yeah.
But the late RBG once said this. She stated, she stated, women belong in all places where decisions are being made. Now, I believe that. I'm going to expand that to all people. All people need representation.
Yeah.
I grew up in an interracial home. I grew up in a home where, you know, folks even practice different religions. So I know how important it is for everyone to be represented across the board.
Yeah.
So I was very taken aback by the quickness to remove people from the ballot without weighing all the evidence. Like I said, we move forward. We don't dwell on what we've not been allowed to do. We dwell on what we can do. And so, yes, I have filed to be a write-in. They make you file as an independent in the write-in in the general election. And if 22 doesn't work out for us, then we set our sights on 2024. And let me tell you, I Senator Braun is, if we can't get Young out of there, Senator Braun is next on the list here.
You gotta go get them. So let's dive into you and your campaign and kind of why you're running and what issues are most important to you and how we intend to fix them. So we talked a little bit earlier about some of the stuff that I want to talk to you about. I want to get your thoughts on pro-life and pro-choice, and we'll dive into a little bit about the healthcare here in a minute. But where do you stand with pro-life, pro-choice, and the recent ruling on Roe versus Wade?
Well, let me tell you, first of all, I am extremely disappointed in the Supreme Court's decision. I think that when you have 50 years of law on the books, precedent, and you have 3 Supreme Court justices, Gorsuch, Barrett, and Kavanaugh, who all said during their interview that this was established law, and then the first chance they got, they destroyed it. I think it's a disgrace.
Yeah.
I'm very disappointed. I am a pro-choice individual. I have been my entire life. I believe that the decision is left up to and between a pregnant person and their doctor. I say pregnant person because we have individuals in this country who identify with the LGBTQ plus community, and they may not identify as women. But my true feeling is that, give me just one law that regulates the opposite of the female genitalia. Just one. Yeah. And I guarantee you it won't happen. And the other thing is that a lot of folks don't know that we actually pay into, I believe it is Medicaid, for penile implant surgery. And I don't know that many people believe that or know that, but it is a fact. So you are already, as a taxpayer, paying for someone to have surgery on their personal needs and leaving the woman out. I just made a post this morning. It's 2022. Why are women still fighting, and those who identify as women still fighting for their voices to be heard in America? I think it's an absolute disgrace. And I think we need folks like this to stand up now more than ever to make their voices heard and to show. I saw that the AOC was actually arrested yesterday in the protest, along with about 16 other congresswomen, as they were protesting abortion rights. Listen, this is not just a women's issue. This is something that even men and those who identify as men need to be a part of. And we have to echo our voices, each other's voices, and let the Supreme Court know we are not backing down from this.
Cool. So no, it's good to know where you stand. And I asked everybody the same question, because if they're pro-choice, I asked them what they feel about pro-life people and how they view things, and vice versa. So obviously there is a flip side to it, where people sit there and say, hey, who's advocating for the child's life? What would you say to that particular person?
Well, I would say a couple of things. I think the first thing is, I think as a country, and I do state this on my website, we're always going to have different views on when life begins. That is a religious issue there that is probably never going to be solved among the masses, coming to a consensus on that. We are not a theocracy, we are a democracy. And what that means is that, again, there are too many variables. We cannot say why a person who is pregnant will have an abortion. We can't say if it's because of rape. We can't say if it's because of some medical issue or healthcare issue. That's why it's supposed to be a private decision, and I understand, when does it need to stop, or when does there need to be a timeline on it? And my answer to that is, again, there are too many variables to place limits and to say, well, after this point, then no more, or something like this, or this can't be paid for or somehow assisted. Listen, when they when the Supreme Court did what they did, they made it less safe for folks to get an abortion. And they also isolated individuals who are in poor communities. That's what they did. They did not remove the act. They did not take it away. They did not stop it, because it will happen. Like I said, they only made it less safe and less accommodating. So
gotcha. So along that,
one more thing
yeah,
I want to say is between 10 and 20,000 women.
Mhm.
That's how many pregnant persons lose their life because they performed an at-home abortion. That's not right. That's not right. So we have to take that into consideration and see, if government is working, then we have to provide a provision for those who make this decision.
Okay, gotcha. That's where you stand, and that's why I created this channel. Know where you stand. So along the same lines of that, I want to talk to you a little bit about healthcare. What are your current views of the healthcare system in Indiana, and obviously you're going for U.S. Senate across the nation?
Yes.
What are your views of the healthcare system, and what would you like to see done to help improve it, if it needs any improvement?
I think it's a mess. That's a short answer. It's a mess. It's a patchwork quilt of regulations, non-regulations, and I think that we can make it smoother, for everybody. I believe in a healthcare system that is affordable for all. And that includes prescription drugs. When we have pharmaceutical companies who are charging 350% higher than some, so we're getting drugs. Our cost for our prescription drugs right now is 2 to 3 times higher than anywhere else, many of them in the world. I think that's wrong. I think we can do something about that. I support plans such as Medicare for all, hospital systems that have their own way for patients who cannot pay to pay. And they are out there. and we can maximize those systems. I really like what Joe Biden has done, with, you know, shortening the gap between those who can pay, those who can't pay, and making healthcare more affordable for everybody. In the United Kingdom, and I had a interview with some guys over there, and the first thing they asked, kind of was the same question as you did. What is wrong with America's healthcare problem? Why can't you guys have, the option of having private healthcare and having public healthcare? What's the issue with that? And I just had to respond and say, well, I guess we don't yet have people who can sit down and, actually agree, to come up with something, but it can be done. And I think we just need great minds to finally make it to the Senate so that they can push and advocate for these things. A lot of things don't happen in the Senate because we don't have advocates. We have people who sit down and they get the position, and all the work that they put in to become the senator, they no longer do. So we have to get people who are working and advocating for these issues.
Okay, gotcha. So another hot topic going across America is the Second Amendment, right to bear arms. What are your views on this, and where do you stand? I think we can all agree that these mass shootings that are happening dozens, if not hundreds of times this year alone, are just got to end somehow, some way. Where do you stand with the Second Amendment, and what would you like to see done to help mitigate these mass shootings?
Take a look at this number, 5.
Mm-hmm.
5 manufacturers right now in the United States are responsible for over 50% of America's guns. Just 5.
Yeah.
Now, I believe in accountability and I believe in responsibility. I am a responsible gun owner. I am a legal, responsible gun owner. I have 2. Okay. Now, a lot of people may, not like that, but I believe in the Second Amendment. Yes, I do. I believe that everyone should be able to protect their home, their person, their personal agency. Yes, you should, but you need to be responsible. And there are certain guns that, folks just don't need to have access to. I'm talking about bump stocks, assault weapons, assault rifles. I'm talking about these guns that shoot 90 to 100 rounds, or what have you. You know what I'm speaking about here. Dozens and dozens of rounds, in under a minute. Why? Why do you need that? Okay, so we're talking about gun show loopholes. We're talking about straw gun purchases. We're talking about folks being able to purchase guns online and build them, and all of these different things. When are we going to hold the 5 manufacturers more responsible for their making of these guns? In the past 2 or 3 decades, we have seen how many upgrades from the iPhone. I don't know. How many upgrades?
I don't even know what number we're on.
How many upgrades to our electrical appliances, our cars, our TVs, all of these things? How come we can't ask these manufacturers to make these guns more safe and make them so that it takes more than just a finger to pull a trigger? I am in the business of challenging each other to be better, and I think that we can. So we must challenge these gun manufacturers and say, hey, if you're not going to cut back on the guns, if you're not going to cut back on the ammunition, if you're not going to do these things which we believe are responsible to the American people, then why on earth can't you get your scientists and your technologists in the lab to come up with something to make these guns more safe other than a lie. And I think that they can do it. They just need to be held accountable to it. And we need to not have senators who are pocketing millions of dollars from the NRA. You know, both of these senators, I will tell you combined, well, I know Senator Young at least has collected over $2 million in campaign contributions from the NRA. Now, if somebody gives me $2 million, I'm gonna probably do what they tell me to do.
It doesn't come with no strings attached. We'll say that.
Absolutely.
I know how that goes. Hey, I am running short on time, but I have one more topic I want to get to, and I want to talk to you about education and get your thoughts on, because this is a high priority for your campaign. You know, give me your overview of what do you view as education across America? What direction are we going in, and what would you like to see done?
Well, I'll tell you what, the first thing that I do is compare America's education to the rest of the world. And I can tell you right now, for example, in the state of Indiana, we're not doing too good. When you have less than half of your student population doing poorly on a test that simply wants to see if they can read and write and do basic math, I think that's sad. I think we need to look at funding. We need to see where the money is flowing to once it gets dispersed from the federal government, which I don't think we've looked into enough to see that it's being dispersed fairly, and to make sure that everybody is, you know, being given the amount that they need to flourish and grow. And we also have an issue with some kinds of schools taking away money from public schools, which I don't think has to happen. Yeah. I think that before these types of schools are funded, there are systems that we can put in place to make sure that our public school system is not getting monies taken away from them. Now, one thing you should know about me is that I am a former public school teacher. I have taught in public schools. I have taught in private schools. I have taught in charter schools. And guess what I can tell you? The staff, the teachers, the administration all want the best for their students. Mm-hmm. So guess what? There's nothing that we can really do about a person's desire to choose and have options on where their students go, but we can make sure that each of these ideas is fully funded. And I think it's time we do that. You know, it's kind of like we talked in the beginning. Why do you have to always be on one side or the other? Why can't we take the two, see what, you know, folks are saying from both sides, put it together in a way that, you know, solves the problem for everybody? Because division brings money, and the folks that push it want to keep it going so that they can keep, you know, this system of division going. Well, I think it's time we put an end to it. I think Democrats, Republicans, independents, libertarians, our American democracy is at stake. It's time now for us to come together.
So are you would you be a fan of like school choice and where people can send their kids? Or
yes, I am all right with it as long as it's not taking away money from public schools. Public schools are fundamental to the fabric of American society, and I say that because public schools have an obligation to welcome everybody. It doesn't matter what your race is, your background, your sexual orientation, any of these things. We have schools in America that can discriminate. Mm-hmm. And they say that they don't, but we know that it's happening. Public schools are the longest type of school that America has had. And it would be my pleasure to ensure that they continue and that they are fully funded in the way that they should be.
Perfect. Perfect. Sounds good. So I know we're running out of time. I know you got an appointment you got to get to. I got things I got to get to over here.
Unfortunately.
So, maybe I'll have you back on. Who knows? We'll see. But at this time in the interview, I do flip it over to you for final thoughts. This is to highlight anything that you have coming up in your campaign that you'd like everyone to be aware of, or any issues we may have missed, whatever it may be. But the floor is yours. Go ahead. Take it from here.
Well, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure, to be with you today. And I thank you for this platform. I think it is phenomenal that you're doing this. And I know that I am one of the fortunate ones to have done an interview with you. And I know I won't be the last, and this will not be my last time here.
You got it. I'll hold you to that.
But I want folks to know, I want listeners to know that despite all of the barriers that this campaign has faced, we are encouraged. We are excited. We are strong, and we are still making moves. I am going to be releasing a mini doc commercial. I'm going to try to get it under 10 minutes as much as possible, that opens everyone's eyes to this process, and that I hope will drive them to the polls to make the best decision come November. And that's what I want people to be looking for. It's going to be on all my social media. I'll be issuing a press release, and also sending it to all the folks who are on my newsletter. So please visit haneefahkhaaliq.org, HaneefahKhaaliq.org, and subscribe. You will be one of the first folks to get that video, and hopefully after that, my schedule fills up for events.
Got it. You got it.
I'll be ready to go.
I'll have all your information in the description below, and we'll go from there. It's been a pleasure having you on. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today. To everyone else, I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye now.
See ya.